Somewhere in Iran, a phone lights up. It's a prayer app. Millions of people have it. It tells them when to pray. It knows where they are because it has to. But this morning, the message on the screen isn't a prayer time. It's a call to lay down their weapons. 400 kilometers away, bombs are already falling. And the strangest part of this story isn't what the hackers did that morning. It's how quickly all of it stopped working. February 28, 2026, a Saturday morning. Before the first aircraft crossed into Iranian airspace, something else had already happened. Iran's radars were watching. Its sensors were listening. Its commanders were connected to their units. And then they weren't. No explosion, no warning, no enemy on any screen because the screens themselves had stopped telling the truth. Iran did not lose the ability to fight that morning. It lost the ability to see. For days afterwards, nobody official said a word about how that happened. Governments never do. Cyber operations are the one part of modern warfare that countries almost always deny. Then, at a press briefing, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, said it out loud. He confirmed that United States Cyber Command had taken part in coordinated space and cyber operations, operations that disrupted Iran's communications and sensor networks, and left the adversary unable to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. He called Cyber Command and Space Command the first movers. First movers before the jets, before the missiles. And the goal, in his own words, was to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. Now stop and think about what that sentence actually admits. It means the war did not begin when the bombs fell. It began earlier, silently, inside networks, and by the time anything exploded, the country being attacked had already been blinded. Cyber analysts noticed something else about that briefing. It wasn't the operation that was new. It was the admission, because this had happened before. According to reporting, cyber operations had already helped blind Iranian air defenses during an earlier strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. And weeks before this war, in January of the same year, cyber operations were reported to have caused a blackout during a U.S. raid in Venezuela. A capital city went dark. American officials publicly suggested their own hackers had done it. 3 operations, a pattern forming. And a country that had suddenly stopped hiding its cyber weapons and started advertising them, which raises a question this case never fully answers. If you have a secret weapon, why would you tell the world you used it? And here is where the story turns on itself for the first time. That Venezuelan blackout, the one credited to hackers, was examined by independent analysts afterwards. Their conclusion was far less cinematic. The far more likely cause, they found, was fighter jets destroying electrical substations. Cyber, they assessed, had played only a small role. So remember this as we go forward. In cyber warfare, the claim always arrives before the evidence. Sometimes the evidence never arrives at all, but in this case, some of it did. And what it revealed was worse than anything announced from a podium. According to the Financial Times, citing 2 anonymous sources, Israeli intelligence had been inside Tehran's traffic camera network. Not for weeks, not for months, for years. The same reporting describes something more invasive still, mobile phone networks that had been, in their words, deeply penetrated. Not one camera, not a district. Sources told the paper that nearly all of Tehran's traffic cameras were being monitored. Every intersection, every convoy, every morning routine of every official who ever drove through that city. And nobody inside Iran knew. Think about how that access actually works. A traffic camera isn't a weapon. It's a piece of civic infrastructure installed to manage congestion, catch speeding, keep a city moving. But a camera network doesn't just show you where someone is. Watched long enough, it shows you where someone will be. Intelligence analysts call this pattern of life. You don't hunt the target, you learn the habit, and then you wait for the habit to repeat. According to that reporting, this is exactly what happened. One camera, a single camera, had identified where the bodyguards and drivers of senior Iranian officials liked to park inside Khamenei's compound. A parking habit. That's what years of digital access came down to. Not a stolen file, not a leaked document, a place where cars tended to stop. Then came the piece of information that set everything in motion. Intelligence officials learned that Khamenei would be meeting senior officials at that compound on Saturday morning. And that is when the war was scheduled. Read that carefully because it inverts everything most people assume. The strike was not planned first and intelligence gathered afterwards. The intelligence came first. The calendar of an entire war was written around one meeting, discovered through compromised networks. On the morning itself, according to the same reporting, those camera feeds and compromised mobile networks did one final job. They confirmed in real time that the meeting was going ahead as planned. The watchers were still watching, right up to the last minute, and then one last operation. Reports state that the mobile phone system near the compound was disrupted, so that the protection detail could not receive any warning of what was about to happen. Consider the precision of that. Not a nationwide shutdown, not a mass attack. A specific communication system in a specific area silenced at a specific moment so that a warning could not travel. Now the necessary caution. Israel has not confirmed any of this. Israel has not commented on a single operation attributed to it in this case. This remains reporting built on two anonymous sources, and it has never been officially verified. But analysts who studied it drew one conclusion worth holding on to. This was not a hack. A hack is a moment. This was an architecture built over years around a single city, combining signals intelligence, cyber espionage, and human sources working together. Cyber wasn't the whole operation. It was one leg of three, and the leg that told the other two exactly when to move. The bombs were falling, and somewhere in a room far from Tehran, someone pressed send. Not a missile, a notification. An Iranian prayer app called Baid Saba, a religious calendar carried by more than 5 million people, pushed a message to its users. The first one read, "Help has arrived," then another. Aimed directly at military personnel, calling on them to lay down their weapons or join what it called the Forces of Liberation. These messages have been attributed to an alleged Israeli cyber operation. It has never been officially confirmed, and at first, it looks almost pathetic. An hour earlier, this same campaign had located a head of state through a parking space. Now it was sending push notifications, propaganda through a calendar app. Compared to what came before, it feels like a footnote. That is exactly what it was designed to look like. Then an Iranian cybersecurity specialist pointed out one detail publicly, one line. And it changes the entire meaning of this chapter. The app requests access to the user's location. It has to, that's not suspicious. That's how it calculates accurate prayer times for wherever you happen to be standing. Which means that for years, 5 million people had been voluntarily telling this application exactly where they were, every day, several times a day, at fixed, predictable hours. Security researchers have suggested that the messages may never have been the point. The users may have been the point. Understand what that would mean. Not 5 million recipients, 5 million sensors. A live map of a population refreshed at prayer times, running quietly on the devices of soldiers, officials, engineers, and their families. You don't need to break into a country if the country is already reporting its position to an app it trusts. That remains an assessment, not a proven fact. No agency has confirmed it, and it should not be treated as established. But hold both possibilities in your head because both are unsettling. Either someone hijacked a religious app to demoralize a nation, or someone spent years quietly harvesting the movements of 5 million people, and the surrender messages were simply what they did with it on the way out. And the same day, the rest of Iran's information space came apart in sequence. 2 state broadcast channels were bombed, and according to the Jerusalem Post, their broadcast was then hijacked to air speeches urging Iranians to turn against their own government. Physical strike, then digital capture. The signal survived the building. Official Iranian websites, including the state news agency, were compromised and defaced. The country's radars had been blinded that morning. Now its televisions, its websites, and the phone in its pocket had all turned to face the other way. And out at sea, something quieter was happening that almost nobody reported. A maritime intelligence firm recorded 1,100 separate instances of GPS jamming and spoofing across Iranian, Emirati, Qatari, and Omani waters. Spoofing doesn't blind a ship. That would be obvious. Spoofing does something more dangerous. It lets the ship keep sailing confidently toward a position that doesn't exist. Civilian cargo vessels, commercial crews. 4 countries' waters. Ships that had nothing to do with this war being told a lie by the sky. That interference has never been attributed to anyone. It still hasn't. For years, this operation had been built. Cameras, networks, an app. Access so deep that a country's own infrastructure had been quietly turned into an observation post. It lasted about 4 hours. Roughly 4 hours into the attacks, Iran switched off its own internet. Not a cyber attack, not sabotage. A decision taken in Tehran and applied to 90 million people. This is the single most misreported fact of the entire war. It was widely described as the largest cyber attack in history. It wasn't a cyber attack at all. Analysts point out that nationwide shutdowns are the Iranian government's standard response to internal unrest. One specialist stated directly that he doubts this was purely a reaction to enemy hacking. And in that moment, something remarkable happened to the most advanced cyber operation of the war. It stopped working. The cameras had nothing to transmit to. The compromised networks carried nothing. The app on 5 million phones sat silent, unable to reach anyone. An intelligence architecture assembled over years lost most of its value in a single afternoon. Not because it was discovered, not because it was defeated, but because the target unplugged the entire country around it. And Israeli sources told the Financial Times something that explains why it collapsed so completely. Those feeds had been used for pattern-of-life analysis, learning where people go and when. Learning the habit, but once bombs start falling, the habits break. Nobody parks where they used to park. Nobody keeps their routine. Targets move to prepared shelters underground. The map stops matching the ground. So here is the uncomfortable conclusion sitting at the center of this case. And it is the reason this story is not a triumph for anyone. For a few hours, one side held almost total digital dominance. It shaped the opening of a war, confirmed a target, silenced a warning, and spoke directly into 5 million pockets. And then it expired. Partly because it worked so well that the victim pulled the plug on an entire nation to stop it. Cyber dominance, it turns out, contains its own expiry date. The better it performs, the faster the door closes. But the door didn't reopen. The blackout didn't end that week or that month. By mid-April, independent monitors had measured more than 1,000 cumulative hours offline. Restrictions were tightened again before Nowruz. The tools people used to get around the blocks were specifically targeted, and the people who paid for it were never in this war. merchants who couldn't process a payment, students locked out of classes, freelancers who lost international clients mid-project, families who simply could not reach the people they loved. Iran's own deputy communications minister put the damage at roughly $3 to $4 million a day. Independent analysts, using economic modeling, put it above 37 million. Neither number has ever been independently audited. The government's figure is the floor. The independent estimate is the ceiling. The truth is somewhere between, and nobody can prove where, because the only country holding the data is the one that switched everything off. The most sophisticated cyber operation of the war lasted about 4 hours. The bill is still being paid. But while the world was watching this war, something else had been running, quietly, without a press conference, without a name. Something that started more than a year before the first bomb fell and did not stop when the bombing did. In Part 2, water systems, power, municipal infrastructure. Safety alarms switched off, while the screens in front of the operators kept showing that everything was perfectly normal.